live on tons of different platforms, YouTube, I think Instagram, a bunch of social media apps, but please share this if you're watching. We are interviewing veteran George Fleischman, who is living in the CTRS, which is those little tiny sheds, the 64 square foot flammable plastic boxes that Brentwood School took credit for, inner city law seemed to pay for. He's a 20 plus year military veteran. He's a former homeowner. He was previously married, and he's currently found himself living in one of these flammable sheds for, well, we'll hear from him, but I believe over 3 years. You know, they wanted to call these temporary, and we think it's important to get a firsthand experience. So thank you, Mr. George Fleischman, for joining us and sharing and being here.
Oh, it's an honor. And I don't mind sharing my personal, even my medical stuff, because one of the things that has kept me sane is while I'm here, I try to help other veterans. And a lot of the guys here trust me. And I've helped other veterans get service dogs. Um, they know they can come and talk to me about any complaint they have. And if I can, I'll try to help them and I'll forward it up. So that's something that has been very rewarding, and being associated with you guys and all the positive work that you've done for the sake of the veteran, I'm honored.
Well, it's unfortunate we have to raise this kind of awareness. We also have Ryan Thompson here, who will be dropping in. I'm going to send him this link so he can share it out. He has been an advocate for, I believe, since 2019 for the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers, and that's that deed restricted federal land that makes George the rightful stakeholder as a veteran experiencing homelessness. Let me just send him
Box.
this.
And then I
And
think I found it.
go ahead, Ryan. You found it?
Oh, yeah, I found it.
Okay, fantastic. Um, Ryan, did you want to say anything or give a quick introduction to yourself or?
Other than just a general backdrop of what's happening here, which is, the National Soldiers Home is permanently deeds restricted federal land that was acquired by constitutional powers of Congress to acquire land on behalf of the United States. And it is the terms that it was acquired on are that it is to be permanently land of the United States and permanently maintained as nothing but a home for disabled and homeless veterans. And that's not, I think a lot of us around the country, if not parts of the world, understand that that's not really what's going on now. And George, who we'll learn more about here, is sitting in a plastic box, as you said. And that plastic box was not provided by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. That box is provided, and I'll get into this later, by a lot of the third parties that are involved with this organized crime ring that are stealing the land and redeveloping it, while we have disabled and homeless United States military veterans who are dying or suffering or isolating in these sheds with a front row view of this illegal redevelopment of the land. And that's just the backdrop I wanted to provide. Thanks.
Okay, so George, if you'd like to, dive in, explain where you are, and anything you'd like to share for the general public to know more about what you're going through.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Cindy. I mean, what's a veteran? I mean, a lot of people, I've heard stereotypes. I've heard some people at one of the town halls that I went to over in Stony Park. Um, I saw somebody stand up and say, "We're all crazy drug addicts, and we're kind of a threat to society." And so I was able to explain during that town hall, yeah, there's some of us that have problems. And among the homeless population, a lot of the veterans that are homeless have had problems with drugs and alcohol or legal problems. In my particular case, that's not true. I had a pretty bloody divorce up in Oregon, and I lost everything. Even some had the judge take away some of my wheelchairs, which I thought was terribly cruel. I mean, nobody else needed those. But I was in the Air Force from 1983 to 2003, 20 years, 8 months, and 13 days. And you know what? I loved every minute of it. And what's nice is the whole time I never pointed a gun at anybody. I would have. I volunteered for Afghanistan. I volunteered for combat, but they wanted to use my mind to help them build computers. And so that's what I did for them is I built computer stuff until I got out in 2003. And then I volunteered to be a defense contractor, and I went on building computer engineering stuff for the Defense Department for about 3 years. But and it was great. I got to travel all over the world. I remember one time my boss called me up and she says, Fleischman, I can't clone you. You're supposed to be at Stratcom, and you're also and that's in Omaha, and you're also supposed to be at Ramstein tomorrow, and that's in Germany. So she said, I'm going to let you decide because you can't be in both places. And I said, well, I'll go to Ramstein. I was born in Germany. So, and in fact, on an American air base, Bitburg Air Base, Germany, and I'm second generation Air Force. My dad was a lieutenant colonel, and he retired. And unfortunately, one day when I was doing all that traveling, I was working out on a treadmill, and I tripped. And I don't know if you've ever been on a treadmill and you tripped, your face goes, I was lucky not to face plant. And this guy next to me was going, hey, would you quit doing that? You're scaring me. And I was like, I don't know why I'm tripping. And then I noticed in the airports or when I was in a hurry or just besides on the treadmill, I started to lose my balance. I started to trip. And before I knew it, I was walking with a cane. And shortly after, I was on my way to work and I felt I didn't feel right. And it's very hard to describe the feeling when you're becoming gradually paralyzed. But I was rushed to the hospital because I was in my car and all of a sudden I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't press on the gas or on the brake. And I had to stop the car by scraping it up along the side of the curb. And I called my wife at the time and said, you got to come get me and take me to the hospital. And so I got there. At first they said, well, you got MS. And they told me, no, it's not MS. You've got brain damage. And you've got what's called neuropathy. And the brain damage is interfering with your ability to walk. And you've got a lot of nerve damage in your feet and some in your hands and in your face and even in your throat and your tongue. And it's going to interfere with your ability to eat, swallow, walk, function. And so it took about 6 weeks after that, after they set me down in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. It took me about 6 weeks to learn how to do things like eat, go to the bathroom by myself, and basically live as a wheelchair person for the rest of my life. So I got home and I went back to work as soon as they would let me. And I worked for about another 6-8 months for the defense contractor, and we won the contract. I am so happy about that because the things that I built and I designed are saving lives today. And I even got a note once from a guy that was flying an F-117A, that's a stealth fighter. And he wrote back and he said, when we go in, they don't see us coming. This was in the Desert War. But once they drop their bombs, that makes a big paint, they call it, on the radar. So they can sneak in, but once they start opening their bomb bay doors and dropping bombs, well, those stealth fighters are not stealthy. And so they die. They get shot down. And I got a thank you letter from this guy that said, I went home to my family. Thanks for building that stuff. So I've never forgot that. That really meant something to me. And I'm really stoked about it because I didn't have to hurt anybody or point a gun at anybody. I've never hurt anybody in my whole life. And I still served for 20 years, 8 months, and 13 days. So I started trying to rehabilitate after the contractor told me, you know, we want you to go home and get better. We don't want you to keep working like this. After we won the contract, they sent me home. And that was in 2006. I just crossed my 20-year point where I've been in a wheelchair longer than the entire time that I was retired in the Air Force. So you can kind of see my little shack here that I live in, but that's my wheelchair right there. And I love that thing because when I first got a chair, they gave me one with flat tires, and I had to go around on shag carpet with a wheelchair with flat tires for a whole winter. This was up in Oregon, and it made me stronger. And so I started working out, and I said, I'm not going to die in this bed. And I started racing wheelchairs, and they gave me this titanium one. And I still do it. I race down here. I raced in the hills of Oregon, and I do at least one 10K, one practice 10K every month. And I'm currently training hard to be in the LA Marathon in the wheelchair. And I'll probably bring my recumbent cycle, which is like a lay down. It's kind of like a 10 speed, but you pedal with your hands while you're laying on your back. It's really fast. It's really fun. So we had a little race here on base last year, and I won in that thing. And the VA provided that for me. And the prosthetics department up in Oregon for the VA, they said, hey, here's a rental. If you really want this thing, you really want to compete, take the rental, use it for 6 months. And if you can come back 6 months later and demonstrate proficiency, you can have a real one, a real titanium carbon frame, one that is suitable for like Olympic competition. Because I applied to the United States Olympic Committee and to be on the United States National Paralympic team, and I'm hoping to be in the Olympics in 28. So first, I need to do the LA Marathon now, and that's in March. So I had my athletics that I persisted, and when I came down here, and my sister had told me, hey, she knew I was homeless from the divorce, and she knew I was in Los Angeles because I lived down here when I was a kid. She said, hey, go to the VA. They've got these tiny home things they're building or talking about, and they've got a big homeless program. And so that's how I ended up here. Is the divorce and losing everything, including my house, my third house that I had paid off. And I ended up here with my service dog, Tank. And when I first got here into these tiny homes, the road in between where the tiny homes are, and then there's some what you call FEMA trailers that have the actual, the showers, the laundry, the bathroom, stuff like that in there. They only had one of those trailers, and at the time they had about 120 pallet shelters here. Well, in one of those trailers, you got 4 or 5 bathrooms. You got only one that's ADA. So that's the American Disabilities Act, and that means it has basically a ramp and some bars in there. And hello, I just lost video. Do you guys see me okay?
Yep, we can see you. Yep. Just
Okay.
put an aerial of the location you're at so people could
Okay.
see.
That little blue dot on that picture is where my unit is. And so if you look at that aerial, you can see that kind of S-shaped road that goes in between. That was all mud. And what happens if you have a muddy, rutted road like that? In 22, when I got here in December, I think it was December 22nd, 22, it was wet. And so that was constantly full of ruts and mud. So if you can imagine being in this wheelchair and trying to push it just with my hand power through deep ruts and mud, well, it was physically very demanding. I had to do that every time I went to the bathroom or used the shower. And one of the other veterans pulled me aside and he said, you don't belong here. This place is not for you. I said, what are you talking about, man? We're all veterans. We're all in this together. And he says, no, man, you're the wrong color. And I said, you know what? If that's the case, And he says, and he told me he was organized crime. And I laughed. I said, dude, they're not taking very good care of you. And so I filed a couple of inspector general complaints, the lack of integration, the racism, the fact that the road was not paved, and the fact that my dog and I suffered 45 days of what we think was cholera from the filth always coming up when I try to cross that road, bringing that mud up because my wheels hit the mud. It gets in my hands, it gets in my face, in my hair, in my mouth. It's very hard to stay clean here. But they paved the road. They brought in more FEMA trailers. So by 23, it was starting to look up. It was looking pretty good. They brought in, we had showers. But now those things are wearing, and we have people monopolizing them. And like what I'm doing right now is with, I had the lady that runs this place, the manager, pull me aside and tell me that I stink and that my clothes need to be washed. And it says, well, you got the laundry all locked up. I can't get into it. You used to have a 24-hour. I don't know why you did that. And there's one shower. There's 140 people here. They all like to use the disabled shower because there's more room, and they monopolize it. So there's one shower that I can use. There's supposed to be two, but the one's usually broken, and it takes an average of 120 days. One of the showers has a missing nozzle. I could go to Home Depot and spend $6 and fix it myself, but they refuse to do that, and they say you have to go through the VA. So since November, we've only had one disabled shower, and there's not the right kind of supervision and oversight going on here. People go into those disabled bathrooms and they have drug parties, they have sex. I went in there and two men, I don't want to talk about that. And what really made me mad is I had to go to the bathroom. I'm 68 years old. And when men start to get older, when they wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, they have to urinate. And yeah, we have urinals in here that we can, use. And I usually use a urinal inside. And I'm sorry, guys, this is too graphic for you, but everybody goes. And I don't have a toilet. I don't have anywhere inside here to wash my hands. All has to go outside. And so when I have the urinal, I have to balance that thing in one hand and push my wheelchair with the other. You know what happens when you push a wheelchair with one hand? You go in circles. So it's not easy. And I'm lucky to even be able to find an outhouse or someplace to even dump the urinal because I can't take it up the ramp into the bathroom because these guys are in there doing stuff they shouldn't be. And like today, I went by there and there's no toilet paper in any of the bathrooms. But after the couple of years that I was here, up until the fires, I was pretty much waiting for them to get me into the program and start looking for housing. And I think it was just after they evacuated us for the LA fires, they told me, hey, we got a studio for you. I was so excited. It was in West Hollywood, and not exactly my cup of tea, but I took it. I said, hey, I signed the lease. I was so happy. I got my service dog named Sir Tank Sherman with a light fur. And he and I were just as happy as a bug in a rug. And we were there 2 hours. And they came and knocked on the door. They hadn't even pulled out of the parking lot yet. And it was the HACLA, the LACLA crowd, the Greater Los Angeles VA Healthcare and housing people. There's about 4 of them there, and they came back to the door and they said, you can't stay here. You got your disability approved, and we're using that to calculate your income, which is illegal. And so they took me out of there and they put me back in the same tiny shack. And they said, but pay card. we'll find another place for you. So they found me a place in South Central Los Angeles. And I said, looks pretty rough here, a lot of graffiti. And they said, oh, no, don't worry about that. Actually, LA likes the graffiti because it's a tourist attraction. It's not really that dangerous. And I said, yeah, sure. Okay. It's inside. I'll still do it. It's a nice place. It's been renovated. It was above the marketplace. Testing on sound. Can you hear me still?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's much better. That's fantastic.
Okay. So above the marketplace there, my HUD Vash social worker said, "Hey, I'm going on vacation." It was over the 4th of July. I think it was in '05, in 2025. She said, "I'm going on vacation. Call these guys up, pay your rent online, and you can go move in." I said, "Sure, I'm happy to do that." Called up, did what she said. They stole almost $2,000 from me. I have the receipts, I have names, I have the property manager. And I came back, and she came back from vacation, and she said, "How do you like your new place?" And I said, "Well, they ripped me off. They took the money, and we need to get the police involved, please, because these people took a lot of money from me, and I have the receipts." And she said, "It's not my job to involve the police. You need to take that apartment." And I said, "I don't have another $2,000." And she said, "Then I'm going to remove you from the program." And so she removed me from the HUD Vash housing program, and that was in August. And I think, if you'll forgive me, the years kind of run together. It might have been August of 24 that happened, because then they said, "Wait until January. We're opening up new apartments up on MacArthur, and family apartments. And I do have a family that I want to live with." And they I qualified for a 2 bedroom. Everything was fine. And then they come out of the blue. There's no explanation. They said, "We're not going to house you there, but we'll give you a 1 bedroom. And this is July now. We need you to sign up for a leasing event, and it'll be ready like in September." And this is some of the new buildings that are up on MacArthur at the Soldiers Home. And so I did everything they asked, did all the paperwork, went through all the loopholes. And they called me up and they said, "The developer, the people that are leasing the land, have decided they don't want you there. They said that it'll mess up their tax advantages by having somebody that's retired there." And they went through and they used my disability income against me again. And I know it's illegal. They even took the money that my ex wife gets and used that as my own income. And so when they finished with these computations, they said, "No, you don't qualify. You can't come here." And some of the same people were also saying that it's expensive to retrofit these non ADA apartments to ADA. It's much easier just to deny access or uh, evict people that need accommodations. So that was pretty disappointing. And I've been sitting here since September, October timeframe when they told me that, and trying to find out why, and still trying to find another place to live. But my divorce, it's not easy. The divorce trashed my credit. And if you don't have good credit in Los Angeles, it's hard to rent a place. So I'm still hopeful. I'm still looking. We're still talking through some of my caseworkers. But there's a terrible, and we've touched on it a little bit in the meeting earlier. There's terrible conflict of interest going on here. I mean, these leaseholders, I don't really think they want us here. And the fact that I have been in this 64 square foot place and I'm not a criminal with my dog for 38 months. That's like a murder sentence or something. That's rough. That's like I'm in prison. And I don't deserve to be treated like this. I know I don't. And since I started advocating more for my fellow veterans and participating in the coalition, the kind of stuff that Senate does, they've been increasing the pressure on me. And I got to a point a couple days ago where I was just trying to empty that darn urinal. And because of the filth, one of my toes got extremely infected, and I'm worried about having an amputation now. It's extremely painful. They had to cut the toenail off, and they can't seem to get the infection under control because of the filth and the lack of places to be able to bathe. So I'm really sick right now from this infection that is now affecting my entire body. It's not just my foot, but I'm on pretty strong antibiotics, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to stop whatever this problem is. I've never had an infection like this. It's very frightening. It's an existential threat. It could kill me.
More than existential.
I
So
Oh, go
so
ahead.
I was going to roll out of here and just try to go dump my urinal, and I'm trying to hold it in one hand. And please, God, don't let me spill it on my infected toe because it's going to get even worse. And I'm spinning in circles, trying my very best just to get that thing dumped. And I poured it down the drain, and man, they start yelling at me and calling me names, and just got so cruel. And then they were ridiculing me today about it. And I said, guys, how can you treat me like this? How can you be so cruel? For God's sake, why didn't anybody say, it looks like you could use a hand? You want me to dump that for you? Nobody offered to help. There's a lot of hatred going on in this place towards the veterans, and I don't understand it. But the persecution has increased. They told me to get my behavior under control, and I needed to be put on drugs. I said, I don't want to be on those zombie drugs. I don't want to be on drugs. I need a place to live. I'm sick. My dog's sick. He's allergic to the toxins that are produced in this place. He suffers horribly. We've probably gone through $4,000 in vet bills for that dog. He's worth it. But it tears me up to see the lesions on his skin and to see him suffer and scratch and cry every day. And I know other guys that have had this problem with their dogs, and as soon as they leave, it goes away. So it's just not me though that's having problems. And I want there's a lot of you know the story about Melody, but there's another lady that lives here, and I'm not going to say her name because she has been singled out, but she's probably about, now if I get this wrong, she's going to probably kill me, but I guess she's probably about 50 years old, maybe 55. She's a former Marine and was a brilliant service person, and had a good life. And they sold the apartment building, and suddenly they raised the rent, and she had nowhere to live. She couldn't afford it. She's diabetic. I have never seen a case of diabetes like this. It's affecting her whole body. She's going blind. She was trying to bring her insulin here past the security desk to stay in her tiny home, and it has to stay cold. So she got a little like dorm room refrigerator. I used to have one. They let us have them, and she got that. and was bringing that in, and they said, "Oh no, you can't have that." And she says, "I'm a diabetic. I see it says right here on my prescription." And they said, "No, it doesn't matter. You need to have a VA doctor's prescription." She said, "I don't go to the VA doctor for my insulin. This guy is, it's why is a prescription not good enough that says to keep refrigerated?" And they've got like 6 refrigerators here or more, and they could have stored her insulin if they didn't want her to have that fridge. No help there. And in fact, not only did they mess with her insulin, they evicted her. And she came to me and said, "I don't know what to do. I'm really afraid I'm going to die. I need better care than this." And so she's been trying to stay in the overnight ones, in the temporaries. And they moved those from over by building 220 to where you can't really see what's going on back there. And I've heard a lot of complaints about the abuse and the behavior of the security guards towards the veterans there. And I would like to point something out. This place is called CTRS, that stands for Care, Treatment, Rehabilitation Services. This is debilitating. This is not rehabilitating. We're targets. And today, when that man was calling me names and yelling at me, I broke down, and it really made me sad because they made me cry. I said, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so hateful? Why are you picking on me? Why don't you offer to help somebody that's obviously struggling? I'm sick. My dog's sick. I'm in a wheelchair. I can barely get up to ramp with this urinal. Why are you taking that weakness and turning it against me?" And he said, "I'm going to write you up because you talk disrespect to me." And so now I'm living in fear that they're going to evict me, and I have nowhere else to go. The diabetic was trying to check in, the lady was trying to check in to the temporaries, and the cops upended all of her stuff in her suitcases. They had no reason to do that. She's not a druggie. She's not, but they dumped all her stuff out in the rain into the puddles. And then they laughed at her. And so she had her dogs and she was trying to gather everything up. And the poor woman fell and she cracked her femur. And they all pointed and laughed. Nobody helped.
George, can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to do this every now and then, just to really drive what's happening here, to the most accurate extent. Uh, you are you served in the military for 20 years, I guess,
Yes.
and you're honorably discharged.
Yes.
And you've been married, you've been a homeowner, you've been a longtime taxpayer, you're a senior citizen, and you have been recently have fallen into homelessness, I guess, about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes. I became homeless November 9th of 2022. And then I got here about 6 weeks later.
Right. And so with that in mind, and you're paraplegic,
Yeah. And I'm an author.
and I'm definitely going to want to talk about that shortly. You're a good author. Um, if you don't mind, can you just show us this shed that these third parties stealing the land are providing here? Is there a way to just kind of take a look at that?
Easy. Sure. Here you go. So that's where I keep my medicines and stuff, and the dog's medicines. That's the air conditioner, and that's my backup sundry items area. So this is 8 by 8, and I
Eight by
play
eight.
guitar, so that's my music stuff right there. And there's the laundry. Uh, there's my racing wheelchair, and then here's the bed, and then some of the folding for the laundry that I still have to do, and then
Yep. And then
That's 360.
and then you also have to navigate this shed with no toilet and no sink in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a drop here in between the bed and the floor. I've fallen and hurt myself in here. I've split my eyebrow open, split my lip. This
Right.
is not ADA. There's not even a ramp to get in here. I have to like hop. It's like hopping a curb with a wheelchair to even get in here every single time.
Right. And so if we're talking about acreage that hasn't been stolen yet, we could say maybe 400 of your National Soldiers Home. All of that right now is being redeveloped, whereas whatever component of it is housing that is buildings that have been stolen. The veteran residents who were there were evicted, including apparently by a contractor we're becoming familiar with in the county case against Kern Price, a contractor named Del Richardson and Associates. I think it was about 850 residents were evicted from the soldiers' home, and then the buildings were feigned to be underutilized and vacant. Right? That's where the story starts. And then these illegal, nothing was legal about the way they were enacted, enhanced use leases that no secretary of the VA has ever signed, as far as I've seen, then are becoming a vehicle to collateralize uncollateralizable land with subleases, and we have banks that are loaning money to themselves under the names of these limited partnerships, and they're saying that there's only 15-year covenants or something like that on them per IRS section 42 in the code. All this mess is going on, and then of course we have buildings like Building 220, right out. If you had a window, you'd see it right out your window.
Yes.
And as we know, that well, I think that was the female at one point in time past that was designed for as a housing for female veterans. And then via a baseball lease, an illegal baseball lease by a baseball team that has its own modern turnkey stadium on its UCLA campus, which I guess is not used for 360 days a year now since the team was relocated. This illegal baseball lease on the soldiers' homeland has a built-in provision to take 2 or 3 buildings. One for a legal clinic that was in 206 that had been the Homeless Veterans Welcome Center when VA was running it, emptied out. And then another one, Building 220, which is some whatever wellness means center that sits almost entirely empty right next to this minimum security prison of sheds put together by Brentwood School, put together by, I think U.S. Vets had something to do with it. The former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger had something to do with it. And Marcy Polier Schwartz's Village for Vets has a heck of a lot to do with it. I guess until the fire happened, in which she didn't want to file an insurance claim and kind of bailed out of that shed village there. And then we have these buildings sitting right there, Building 220, namely the building that when we had gotten folks moved from the sidewalk in our tents into tents that we were told we still had to provide on that patch of dirt, we had an understanding that 220 was going to be swiftly renovated by the VA and not these crooks that are stealing everything. And so people would be in these tents for 3 months, for 90 days or something, just as quickly as they remodeled it to be offices for Tess Benko, who's now with U.S. Vets and was at UCLA beforehand. So while all of this is happening, right? While all this is happening, the farthest you get on trying to get your housing, right? You're sitting at your home. You're sitting where only you and the federal government are allowed to be. And the taxpayers have been paying for it to be that way uninterruptedly for 136 or 37 years. And for 3 years now, you're sitting there in a plastic flammable shed. And the closest you get, I guess, is you were offered an apartment somewhere out in the county, out there somewhere, right? Where we keep hearing these corrupt judges and attorneys pretending that they're for veterans, trying to say it's cool to house people out somewhere else in the county. And that was what you were offered, but cruelly, you get to this apartment, and 2 hours later they say, "Whoops, sorry, you can't have it," and you go back to the shed.
Yeah, they said, congratulations, you got your 100% service connected disability, and because of that, you can't live here.
Yeah, yeah. And then meanwhile, I mean, meanwhile, This is a horrible, cruel, and unusual punishing position to be in, and one that it should have nothing to do with what we're paying for as taxpayers across the country. And unfortunately, it gets worse because we have veterans dying defraudedly homeless throughout this country every single night when that home is sitting there being stolen. And hopefully as far as the criminals conspire for a mega mall, a 450,000 square foot mega mall, for Brentwood School, for a baseball stadium that instead of using the real baseball stadium because they want to cover up a methane and oil racket. And then right there in this system that looks like a minimum security prison of sheds with no toilets and sinks, you victims, right? Oh, by the way, that was designed or at least conceived, as far as I can tell from the record, back in 2015 by Admiral Mike Mullen, who's running Vets Advocacy, who's out touting around that he's such a great guy. It'd be great to see one piece of evidence that he is. So we've got veterans dying all over the country. And by the way, how many have died in those boxes since you've been there?
I would say, I don't know, a couple a week at least.
A couple a week. How many boxes are there?
There's 140 approximately of the individual occupancy ones, and then you have another dozen that they call the drop-in shelters. Those are double occupancy. The 140 single occupancy. And yeah, for 140 of us, there's one shower that I can use.
Right. As long as you're taunted trying to get into it.
Yeah.
Right. And I presume too that those are deaths that don't always make the record, and I'm sure that gets a little easy to obscure when you have L.A. County that can't wait for the big tax boom to start robbing Peter to pay Paul, as everybody's wondering what the heck they've done other than steal billions of dollars of homeless money. They're looking at it as a big taxable downtown Brentwood. So I doubt those deaths are even really, legitimately even reported. I think that's probably a death count that is underreported.
One man here became so despondent, he tore out his jugular vein with his fingernails. He cut his own throat with his fingernails.
Well, it's also the national capital of veteran suicide as much as it is veteran homelessness, and I think that maybe this conversation is also a beginning of a way to understand that too. That maybe we need to start considering that it's not a national capital of veteran suicide because veterans are zombies from a Thriller video who are smoking crack all the time. And by the way, if some are substance abusers, I could surely as hell understand why going through this shit. But there's a lot of duress, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of cruel and unusual punishment. I've been hearing about it directly for 6 years, and I can barely stand it, which is really another testament to how astonishingly commendable it is for you folks who are surviving this. And I think that probably is also a testament to what a veteran, among many skills, maybe had learned from their service in terms of personal core strength and survival. But anyhow, that's all I wanted to interrupt with. Thanks.
I was going to mention real quick, George, there's some people in the comments, and I just wanted to let you know, someone said, George, I'm so sorry you're still there, brother. There's people that are, commenting that they hear you. There was a comment here as well that I put on the screen. 220 made the VA move the drop-in shelter. So building 220, which was taken over by UCLA, formerly homeless female veterans lived there, occupied building 220. That's what towers over you guys. Can you speak on this or what they're talking about maybe?
I think now it's the UCLA Family Medical Center, I believe.
Was there something regarding the drop-in shelters as of recent, or?
Yeah, they moved the drop-in shelters over the new year, and they just brought in a crane and picked them up and set them down on the back side of the property because they said that UCLA was complaining about the number of homeless people that were congregating around there.
And for someone who doesn't understand the drop-in shelters, how does that typically work for a veteran that would need a place to stay overnight? Do you know how that process works for them?
Um, you have to go through the welcome center and let them know, and provide your what's called the DD-214. It's a document showing your discharge from the military, and military ID, stuff like that. And then they call a social worker who will meet you over at the drop-ins, and they'll put you in a drop-in one of these shelters with somebody else usually, and you go in there about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, and you have to leave about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you have to go through applying and standing in line every single day. So if it happens to be raining, you've got inclement weather, these guys have nowhere to go. They have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're just out.
Wait, did the sound cut out, or is that
Yeah,
just me?
George. Oh, there you go. George, can we hear you? I think you might be muted.
I think the sound just cut out. Let me see.
Yeah, George, if you can hear us, you're muted.
He might have hit the button because I don't think he can hear us, actually. George? George,
Let me text him.
can you hear us? George? Let's see. One second here. I'm going to do hide camera, keep audio. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Camera, front camera. Oops. Let's see here. Back camera.
Obviously, there are a lot of folks out there who'd like to keep him muted. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Here. Let me see. Let me click this. Because let me see something. Let me remove this.
Testing.
Oh, we can
Okay,
hear
here we
you,
go.
George. So let me just see if I can get your camera back on here. Hide camera. Okay. There we go. We see you. I think it's just the cameras face the other way, which I think I could. Let's see. Back dual wide camera. Let's try that. Maybe I'll request to switch your camera. Uh,
I could do it.
okay, great. We could see the other side of the camera. I was sharing a video or image of CTRS. You were describing it being full of dirt and things of that nature. Is that how it looked at one time? You having to get a wheelchair through this encampment here? If you can see, might be the best thing to leave and come back in, if that's okay, George. Let's see. And then Ryan, is your camera on and working, or? Let's see, George. Boom. Here we are.
Testing.
Yep, we hear you. I hear you. And it's just the camera's flipped around, but if you prefer, whichever you prefer.
I'll fix it.
Okay.
Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah, I might.
There you
Oh,
go.
there we go. Fantastic. And can you see the screen with all the mud?
Yeah.
And is that a bit how it looked with you
Yeah,
having to
that's
get
perfect.
through?
Yes, that's just how it was.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Ryan, you're muted. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. I meant to ask George. I kind of know, but I think it's good for us to hear. Um, when you're talking about the security, the or they, when you say like they came to our sheds and this and that, can we get an idea of who they is or who the security is, or who are these folks
So you have several different levels of staff here. You have the social workers, and they are, as far as I know, VA employees. You also have on that staff what's called peer support, and that's like one echelon below the social workers, and I think they're all veterans. And then those are VA employees. Below that, there is a contractor known as HARP that a gentleman up in, I think, Brentwood runs out of his garage. But it's they provide stuff like the meal service and some of the management of the units, as far as, handing out towels, making sure people have what they need, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also the security guards. I don't know the name of the company because it's kind of blacked out. I don't believe that it's Black Knight, but they do have security guards on both the front gate and the back gate 24/7 doing weapons searches, which is okay with me. I don't carry weapons, so they can search all they
Right,
want.
they do, but you don't. And when we're talking about, I know we have these tiers, and my understanding, at least from documentation I have and stuff, is that it was primarily like Village for Vets and private security that were kind of running the operation, and then recently VA started coming into it more. Although it has been reported to us that actually maybe Village for Vets still has the money running through them, even though people are wearing VA badges, which is expected, but too bad. But in terms of when you're talking about these bad experiences of interacting with people at the sheds, which folks are they? So like when you're being, taunted by someone just trying to go to the bathroom or trying to get hot water in the shower or all that stuff. Like give us an idea of which folks are these that this is happening with.
Well, most of the social workers are professional, but one of the peer support guys, has got a real chip on his shoulder, and I really don't understand it. He was the guy that had me crying today, and asking, "Why are you so cruel? What do you hate? Where's all this hate coming from? I don't understand it. Why didn't you help me? Why did you have to ridicule me and put me down like that? Call me an idiot?" So he's quite the bully, and he's been doing it ever since he got here, and so that one person is a severe problem. Um, and now, for some reasons, the custodians have got involved with this harassment. And I was getting yelled
And
at by the
who are they?
custodians.
What
And
what are,
they're responsible for emptying the trash and keeping the bathrooms and the showers clean. And
and is that a contractor?
yeah, they're a contractor. It's just a custodial contractor.
Right. And then I am already familiar, not as much as you, with Harp, who has the contract now. I think they kind of took over for Hope of the Valley, which
Yep.
I think one of their guys was chasing folks around with hammers. Before that was Village for Vets, Hope, and then now Harp, which, yeah, as far as I can tell, looking into it, it appears to be run out of a home. There's millions of dollars in contracts going through. Despite which, right, we hung out for a few hours on that heat wave this summer, which was a like multi-day heat wave over 100 there,
Yeah.
barely over 100. And they had plenty of water, but were not providing the water to you guys. And that's why we had to show up, thanks to AGIF El Camino Real Forum, UCRF, with I think it was what 2,500 bottles of water or something like that. And that was pretty depressing because Harp, which was basically not there, but over the phone when they were called, was trying to prevent us from providing the water, and at the same time telling us that they have all the water, we have tons of water, but I guess they just didn't feel like taking it out. And as this is happening, we have video of this, right? There
Yep.
are folks in wheelchairs, crutches, people coming up and like, hey, can I get some water? And initially, Francisco and I are answering, oh yeah, sure thing. And it was like, no, we mean now. can you just rip some out of there? Because it is so damn hot. I mean, this is complete insanity. It's insidious. And I haven't checked this in a long time, but I think there's definitely been I think at least $20 million in congressionally appropriated funds, not necessarily maybe to be for CTRS or not, but have made their way into these contractors' pockets and into folks like Village for Vets pockets. I think they've gotten what, $8 million so far. While this is going on. So
I was gonna mention, and I think what George, you don't have to acknowledge, say yes or no, but I'll say that the last time that I was there, as many know, Rihanna has showed up quite a bit ago because she saw the concern and the issues that veterans were experiencing. She filled up a vehicle full of donations. She's done that actually a couple years in a row. The last time when we were there, I was there with Commander Francisco of AGIF, ECRF as well, who I actually see is in the chat. He's watching this as we speak. But a veteran, had come up to me. He wanted a sleeping bag. He wanted a bunch of supplies and things of that nature. And someone with a badge, the badge was flipped around. And I'm going to show you a photo of him. Now, this gentleman, and I could make it maybe bigger on the screen. I can make it big. Can you see that, George, by chance, or it's a little blurry?
Can you put it a little higher?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put it on the screen. But I wanted to say that he came up to me and he started basically saying how this place is great, this is nice, and the veteran speaking to me got a little tense at the time, and was saying, oh, this guy's great. He was talking, how amazing this person who works at CTRS is. And sure enough, I got a call later that night from that veteran and said that guy has drove him crazy, that guy has given him a hard time, that when he says that, the bathroom's dirty, that there's this issue, that they're not getting the food on time, that he is retaliated against by this particular gentleman. And I'll put him on the screen because it's been tough to figure out, another comment we just got was, a lot of these people don't wear badges. They don't wear any identification. And obviously that's certainly concerning for these third-party contractors and their employees that are doing everything but serving the veterans that they're meant to. So you're more than welcome to share anybody's name you wish or not. I mean, whatever is you feel comfortable. But I personally, I thought this gentleman was incredibly rude, not professional. He was trying to say how this place is great, CTRS. I said, well, would you have your mother sleep here if she needed a place to stay? He acknowledged that, yeah, actually he wouldn't, that this place isn't good enough for his mother. I said, well, why is it good enough for a veteran experiencing homelessness at this time? And I just wanted to mention that. And what was so sad, among many things, was that the veteran in front of him, really wanted to vouch for him because they're in fear of this situation. And
Exactly.
And to get that call later that night to say, hey, I just said that because I didn't want to be retaliated against, it was pretty disheartening. And Commander Francisco here, he wrote, I overheard the Principal Derek ask, quote, what's better than what we are providing, quote. He obviously has no knowledge of the history and appears not to want to know.
That's the guy. He's the
That's
king.
the guy. So
He's the ringleader. He's the one that's been giving me such a bad time. He's the one picking on diabetics. He's a real chip on his shoulder, like I said.
I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm gonna put him on the screen. Ryan, was there anything you wanted to mention or share?
Well,
Or,
I just want to say for starters regarding Derek, I think a good inquiry to pursue is for us to find out if Village for Vets is touching his paycheck anywhere on the way from the people of the United States to or not to George. Because I've definitely been hearing that even though there are VA badges, and some of the folks actually, of recent actually think are okay, or a couple of folks working there as VA that have come in more recently. But I've never met Derek. But what I have been hearing is that VA badge, even if it's a VA badge, a lot of times this stuff is running through Village for Vets, and there's too much to say about them here. But that's all I wanted to interject with for now.
Yeah.
The other thing, oh, go ahead, George. Did you want to mention anything in
No, it's just
particular?
it's interesting the way you described that. I knew who you were talking about just from the behavior.
Yeah,
And so,
I mean, it really, it was really disheartening to hear how, in particular, this veteran was vouching for him in front of him because he was in such fear of retaliation, and that is, I mean, unacceptable is an
And that's
understatement.
something too.
I did just show a picture.
I just want to say, and that's
Go ahead,
something
Ryan.
too, Senate. Obviously, you and I and other advocates have very much witnessed many times. There is a lot of retaliation, uh, even against us, but not nearly as grave as it is for the only folks who should be living there. So that definitely happens. And then I forgot to mention too. Ruth Ruthless. She contacted Pallet, and she had a pretty long conversation with them on record. So I guess Senate, we should probably put a link up to this at some point after, where she spoke with Pallet, who's manufacturing these shelters. And as far as I understand, they said nobody should be in those under any circumstance for more than a maximum of 6 months. George has been there 3 years.
3 years. I mean, and even in the ridiculous PR that they do, they've said that these are transitional. There's nobody in their right mind that would expect anyone, let alone someone who served our country, to live in this for
yeah,
several years.
that's
You
in.
see that photo
Yeah.
on the screen? So this is the gentleman who's essentially tormenting you and others. And by the way, for full clarity, this was the gentleman who came up to me, and I could not believe his temperament. I was thinking, I mean, if this is how he's speaking in front of me and to me, he does not have the temperament to help people who are vulnerable. And it's been confirmed through many, many, many veterans over and over and over that he has given them a hard time. Here it says peer specialist on his badge here at the bottom. And, whatever retaliation I may face for sharing him, or he might be upset, it doesn't matter. This is absolutely wrong, and it has to stop. It has to stop.
So this is the guy that is messing around with people's insulin. You could kill somebody that way.
Can you run that by me? And maybe I missed that before. The thing, with the insulin, what happened with that?
Yeah, it's a couple of the guys, one lady and a couple of the guys are insulin dependent diabetics. The woman is really bad. She's really sick. I've never seen anybody like this so quickly from from diabetes. Sorry, and she just got a little refrigerator to keep her insulin in because it says right on the script that she's supposed to. Otherwise, it loses its potency, I guess. And she tried to bring in the refrigerator, which is allowed. I had one for a while until it wore out. And Derek was there, and he said, "You can't have that in here." And the only way you can have that is if you get permission from a VA doctor. Which she says, "I don't go to a VA doctor for this. I go to my own doctor in the valley for my diabetes." And he says, "No, you have to go through a VA doctor. You have to make an appointment with them. Okay, 30 days, and then you have to get a letter from the doctor saying that you need a refrigerator, and then we'll think about it." And she says, "What about now? My stuff's going to go bad." And so when I heard about that, I complained. And so they evicted her. And now she's trying to stay in the drop ins every night. And I mentioned this earlier. but the security guards were going through her things when she was trying to check in. They broke her dog dish. They dumped all her clothes and everything out of the suitcase into the rain, got everything wet and muddy. They laughed at her. And when she was struggling so hard, she's weak. She's going blind, literally. And she fell and fractured her femur, struggling with all this. And they sat and laughed and laughed and laughed. And so she's over in
Who is they? Who is they that laughed?
the security guards. And I don't know if Derek was involved in that or not, in that particular incident, with her falling and her stuff being dumped out. But he was involved in evicting her. He was the primary person that was interfering with the incident.
Right. And also, George, there have been a couple times where you're constant. I know for a fact that you're constantly trying to get housing, even if it's housing that is not as desirable as if that place was being run by the federal government and legitimately run instead of these crooks.
Yeah.
But you have tried to get into these so-called enhanced use lease redevelopments or remodels, and into some of the buildings there, and that didn't pan out. And so, if you don't mind, what were some of the like? How is it that you went down this road several times and were never provided housing there?
I spent 365 days in 2025 waiting for them to get their act together. They told me, hey, right after the fires in January, you can get into a 2 bedroom. And then they kept putting it off like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, construction delays. And so when they finally opened them up, I was really excited. I was going to get in there, one of the 2 bedrooms. And they said, no, you're not getting it. They didn't explain why I couldn't have family housing. They just said no. But what you can do is you can get in one of those 1 bedrooms up in MacArthur, but you're going to have to wait and won't be ready until September. And this is when I've already been waiting all this
And
time.
and though and the MacArthur places there, that's the private redevelopment scheme,
Yes.
which had also I've been hearing only rumors at this point that there were a handful of non-veterans living there. But those were the 500 units of new construction that were supposed to be up and running, if I remember correctly, by the beginning of 2020.
Right.
However, there was a soccer club there that was, had an illegal deal. The Otero had ordered them out as one of the obviously illegal land users. And they had that whole MacArthur field, which is where veterans used to have lunch and picnic with their families when they come visit them when they're living there, and as well as that giant parking lot next to it. And they had never left, and they were not paying anything. They had received 3 or 4 federal eviction notices, and they acted really cocky and acted like they were above the law. And then we realized why with an FOIA. It was Ted Lieu had jumped in and intervened personally and said, you know what, maybe we should let them stay. And then, of course, we remember from some of the advocacy that we had recorded and put out there several years ago, there was an excuse that the Building 256 Welcome Center that Village for Vets was running like crap after they had emptied out 206, had to be removed because they had to do exterior landscaping that the soccer club was going to provide. So you have to remove the few veterans that are getting anything barely left in the third-party crooks version of a welcome center. But now you have to get rid of even that because of exterior landscape work by a soccer club, right? And so I believe it wasn't until about 2021 or maybe late, or no, it wasn't until around 2022, right? A few years after all the units were supposed to be there, that this land grab then actually put a shovel to the dirt on that new construction, and of course in their own special way involving the banks and all that laundering stuff. So it's utterly just insane.
So they promised me a 1 bedroom. I filled out the paperwork 11 times so far, all the documentation, the banking, all this stuff. And
It came back and told me, I know we promised you an apartment, but the developer stood up in a meeting and said, oh, he's going to mess up our tax position. We're not going to give him a place.
And I presume that means federal low income housing tax credit scheme.
I don't know what that, he just,
Yeah.
apparently
Yeah.
that's what he said at the meeting. I'm hearing it's, so the people, Rob Reynolds is the guy that is talking to the developer. And I said, okay, he doesn't get to do that. He doesn't get to just stand up. There's got to be accountability. First of all, I want to see their fuzzy math because they're using my disability against me to disqualify me and also my ex-wife's income. And I never, she's got a restraining order for heaven's sake. She can't come. So it's just, they're grasping at straws. I don't know if it's because I've spoken up for other veterans or these people, they don't know me. Maybe it's because it's expensive to have people in wheelchairs there. But that's just all by guess and by golly, I really don't understand. So I insisted on a letter in November explaining why I was disapproved. And they've been kicking that can down the road. I still have not got the
Just to
letter
get a letter.
because the developer keeps, because they know they have no justification. I know what the law says. You guys know what the law says, but there's no accountability.
Um, so one day, a while back, when we're talking or texting, you had mentioned one of many things over the course of knowing you that's always been like, what does this guy not know how to do? And you had mentioned that you're an author, and I went on Amazon, and sure enough, there you are. And I ordered 5 copies of one of your books, and it's an excellent read, and it really taught me a lot, um, at least about what I believe is one reason you have a lot of core strength in trying to get through this insanity and unconstitutional, uh, life-threatening treatment. And that is this book right here that you wrote. And I learned from this book that you wrote, um, you wanted to, at least as far as I understood, we never talked about this, but as far as I could understand from reading it, um, you want to make sure that your fellow veterans and others who are challenged by the same things you are can maybe some you can maybe some of the things you've learned yourself could be good advice that could help them too. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but
The book's called Suicide Not for Whosoever, and it's a self-help manual to encourage people to keep living and not hurt themselves. And it gives them certain tools that I call your spiritual muscle memory. Just like soldiers and basketball players and other athletes, they have muscle memory because they do lots of training. It's a way to train your emotions and your spirit so that when you get with overwhelming emotions and things seem like there's no hope, you can fall back on that muscle memory. It's like a soldier when he's getting shot at, he's not thinking about being shot at. He's reacting at that point. He's using his muscle memory. Might get scared later, but when the bullets are flying, those guys are falling back on their training. And so the whole idea behind the book is training and disciplining the mind so when these emotions do come, how to handle it. I've had my mother tried to kill herself 8 times. I saved her life twice. When she turned 95, just before she died, she said, son, thank you for my life. I gave you life, and you gave me another 40 years. God bless you. Write a book about it.
yeah, and I read that in there.
And it's on the screen. There's a QR code that you can scan and go straight to the book on Amazon, by the way. And we have it so people
And by the way,
can.
George, you know, you mentioned this once casually in passing, so I hope you don't mind that you know that we're putting this up here. You are very modest about what you go through. So I just want to say I think it's just important. I think it's relevant to this discussion. You know that we need to understand what it takes to just get through with shit like this every day. So.
And people can please. I mean, George, as Ryan said, George didn't ask us to share the book, mention the book, but I'm gonna say, if you can and willing, $12.95, support the book, read it, and share it, because not just for the good read, but it's I think could help out George quite a bit as well. Um, there was one document I was going to show, and I think I shared it at the very beginning here, and it was the document of inner city law paying for the shelters. And as you see here, 64 square foot, as I think we mentioned, a prison cell is legally can't be smaller than 60 square foot. So they give a veteran 4 more square feet, but minus the water, the toilet. And as you see, inner city law is the bill. And the other document I just wanted to put up just for, uh, because, and maybe Ryan, you have something you'd want to mention on this in particular. But here there's a lawsuit case, Powers versus McDonough. And there you see inner city law there as representing the veterans. And I think if you read the complaint, it mentions a whole bunch of stuff on how CTRS is inhumane and it's sheds and it's not a home. But certainly a contradiction when you see an invoice that they paid for them and then later representing veterans to what I would think they want the public to believe is to help them. If there's anything you'd want to mention on that in particular.
I'm going to restrain myself on that one because if I start mentioning something about that, I'll go on forever. But we did do a live stream about that earlier, and I'm sure there's stuff we can talk about it again. But I don't think it would be fair if I got myself on the track right now.
Understood. Just wanted to mention is that's where George is living
Yeah.
right now, in one of those sheds.
And there's one other thing that they did, and I tried so hard to get a lawyer, and lawyers don't want to take on the VA, not the ones that I found. But this was during the time of the fires, and they had some construction in this area. They were putting in new fire alarm system, which is fine. These, as you know, they're fire traps. So, in fact, I'll show it to you. I don't know if you can see it up there in the ceiling behind a cage, but that is a central fire alarm system. It's very sensitive, and we've had people cooking drugs in these things, so it's okay. I was here when one of them caught on fire. It's okay with me. But when they were putting them in, they were doing some really heinous things with terribly unsafe stuff. They had a backhoe right next to my front door. My dog almost got it with a backhoe. They were using concrete saws. The sound inside my unit without warning was 105 decibels. And I'm a musician. I don't want to lose my hearing. And it traumatized my dog. And so it was, I can't even tell you, if you ever heard a concrete saw, the kind of thing they use to cut through roadway, not road rage, roadway. And it's about an 18-inch blade that gets real hot. And they were slicing through the asphalt out here, and it made a heinous noise. And they were within about 8 inches of my head on the other side of this quarter-inch thick wall where I was trying to sleep at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I tried to find out what was going on. I found out they were totally violating OSHA and they were using construction equipment in patient areas. And a lot of people the patients were completely freaked out about it. And so I called the Disabled American Veterans and asked them to help me with that. And they came out and made sure that the veterans they were helpful. We made sure the veterans got earplugs. They talked to the contractor. They had to do it twice because as soon as he left, they went back to what some of the stuff they were doing they weren't supposed to. Like they weren't cooling the blade to mitigate the sound and also to keep down the heat. You're supposed to run water over one of those blades, and they said they were doing it and they weren't. I don't know why they didn't want to run a hose over there. So we had the fires in the middle of all this, and we had to evacuate. And I went to the pharmacy. I'm on several medications. I can't swallow, so I have to have special food. I choke on water. I can't swallow water, so I have a feeding tube, which has been clogged up ever since I got here, and they won't fix it. I have a pain pump on the other side of my body, on the opposite of the feeding tube, because it's extremely painful to have neuropathy and to have this brain damage, and my spine is degenerating. I've got degenerative arthritis in my neck, so I have a morphine pump that gives me about 5 milligrams of morphine every day on a continuous drip. It's also a bupivacaine to control the neuropathy in my feet. So that allows me. It's very very little. It's just a trickle that lasts about 5 months, but it's enough to for me to be able to function and do my sports and uh, and stuff like that. But so I have a lot of medications to manage. And by the way, I don't take narcotics for pain. Okay, they offer them to me, and I said no. I would rather live with the pain than live with narcotics because they don't have a narcotic that's meant for long-term chronic pain. You're either going to live with your pain or you're going to let the drugs kill you, and I don't want to die. So back to the fires. I go to get my prescriptions refilled because I know that we're being evacuated, and nearly all of my prescriptions, including my blood pressure medication, was turned off. Now, these are things that had active refills on them. And suddenly I can't get, so we're evacuating. I can't get my meds. And the pharmacy won't tell me why. I said, these are good prescriptions. What's going on? What doctor turned everything off? They would not tell me. And I went in and spoke to the patient advocate about it, trying to find out what was going on. And he said, we're going to 5150 you. And that means they were going to, without any
Strap you
due
in.
process, they were going to lock me up for complaining. And at the time, I just cracked up. I said, dude, I'm not staying here for that. I've got a dog back waiting for me in my shelter. And I literally outran him because he chased after me. And then as soon as I got here, I got some help and said, hey, look, these guys are not going to lock me up. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. I was crying. Sure, they turned off all my medications. Had some existential fear. So, fortunately, I have other sources of medical care because I retired from the Air Force. So now, uh, if I have something I need that critically, I do not rely on the VA.
Yeah, and let's also not s- go through this too without mentioning who that they is too. Uh, those doctors, that medical staff. I mean, what is that they?
It's mysterious. That's part of the lack of accountability. Nobody would tell me who's making those decisions. Just
But
suddenly,
I
I go to
mean,
the
in terms of
pharmacy
in
and
terms of the entity overall that's running that hospital, that's UCLA.
right.
UCLA is nearly absolutely entirely running that place, and to great extent with residents that are medical school students. Every single every authoritative voice inside the operation of that can push anything into a policy is UCLA there. They've got their own committees, their own, UCLA doctors, everything. It's a complete coup d'etat. And it was even worse than I had ever known before. I already knew it was very much that way, but then I really learned how encompassing it is when Melody was out there on Christmas night, freezing in for LA, which is kind of shocking, but below freezing weather. And that's when I learned that the hospital, UCLA had made that hospital, that VA hospital, no longer a 24/7 hospital. And they started having closing hours. Let alone when you're talking about all the things they're saying they can't do there. I've also become very familiar with that from many veterans. Suddenly they can't perform a lot of different medical services. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's terrible. I have heard that maybe they did go back to 24/7 hours in the largest VA hospital in the universe. But I don't know. I'm not able to corroborate that. I don't know if you've heard that or not. But
Yeah, I had actually from my foot getting infected. It got really bad one day at breakfast, and it was on a Sunday, and I I I couldn't continue functioning. I was so much pain. I collapsed, and they took me to the emergency room. So it was Sunday. Yeah.
and also, if you don't mind, I think maybe it's worth going through what evacuation means during the fires, what that was all about.
Well, Brentwood School sent some buses over here, and they called in the staff, and they formed like a cordon. And as we walked out or rolled out of our tiny shacks, they had this line of people, and they said, "You got to go get on these buses." And not everybody wanted to go on the buses.
And
They're
this is
saying,
what
"Hey,
time?
pardon me."
What time of day?
This was about 11:30 at night.
And I'll just add that at that point in time during the Palisades fire, as well as the entire time, all the way through the Palisades fire, the reason that the people of Brentwood, the people of Westwood, and the UCLA students and the staff at the soldiers' home, whether they should be there or not, they did not have to evacuate because there never had been an evacuation order of any kind, nor within, I think, a half mile to a mile of you at that soldiers' home. The fire never got closer than 2 miles away, but at 11:30 p.m., suddenly everybody who's in a shed and then some is ordered that they have to go. And so, what happens from there?
They wouldn't tell us where they were taking us, and that made me very uncomfortable. But I got it. Then they told me I couldn't have my dog with me, and I got him on the bus anyway. But yeah, they took us to some, I forget the name of it, some Red Cross gym and park in central Los Angeles, I think.
That is, it was Pan Pacific Park, right
Yeah.
next to Rick Caruso's The Grove Mega Mall,
Yes.
and there's a gym building there, and they dumped you there, right?
Yes.
And then what happens after that?
Well, there was probably over 100 of us in there in the gym area, men and women together on cots. And then Melody heard about that I was over there, and she had got a hotel, and she offered to let me sleep on the extra bed. And so I was able to spend a few days in a hotel, which was nice to be able to get cleaned up.
Right, and that was great that that happened. As for most of the rest, I think they were then, as reports started getting out and advocates started showing up, I believe that most were then trafficked to Stoner Park, which I think is where those BS Armory meetings are happening.
Yep.
And then And then as that heated up, I think the final destination was what the basketball courts or whatever that LA County put into Bob Hope Patriotic Hall. I think that was the final dump spot.
Yep.
And then as it just seemed to become pretty evident that human trafficking looks like human trafficking, and dumping people outside of a place that has a history of land grab dumping people from it is just not going to be, even if you have a Super Bowl commercial putting the Red Cross out there, is just not going to fly. And so folks were retrieved and taken back to their sheds.
Yep.
And by the way, there's someone in the chat that I believe was living at the Dom run by the federal government at the time, and says that they didn't evacuate. And there was also this video of George speaking at that time with a caption that essentially summarizes what he was going through.
And who was outside the door when you opened the door?
If people want to check that out. But, while people were living in other parts of this, they were living as just about any other Brentwood resident was, except for the people living in the sheds. Were all bussed out, I guess, on Brentwood School's dime, or who knows, or the taxpayers.
Yeah. And then, I mean, right, here we are, Brentwood School involved with, this middle of the night bus dump. And then we've got Brentwood School behind, amongst others, this dream of this minimum security shed prison that Mullen came up with several years prior. And now, right, I mean, we've just gone through this whole notion of I guess we're supposed to somehow agree and misperceive that a few hours of workout time at a stolen National Soldier's home under the prejudicial supervision of Brentwood School security is apparently worth more than the lives of the couple hundred disabled and homeless veterans that we mandate permanently be surviving and healing on that land that is stolen by them. All those lives, that are lost every several years that would be living there otherwise at their home that we're paying for, without all the BS enhanced use lease crap that lies about our poor little broke VA, just so they can kick both the VA and the veterans out of land they want to steal. I guess those few hours are worth more than all those lives. And there's no other way to put it. That is exactly what it means. That is exactly what it means. That is the equivalence of saying lives every that would be living there as they are absolutely supposed to on the constitutionally acquired land by a Congress that has become so corrupt now, it calls what we're looking at and talking about here forward together with nothing happening. And we have a VA that has $400 billion a year or whatnot budget. This is an organized crime ring, a mafia obstructing lives and the rule of law at a constitutional level. And we're supposed to think that a couple of hours of some veterans, they don't have to be disabled, they don't have to be homeless, but just some veterans, right? If they can use a gym on stolen land that's manslaughtering veterans with avoidable homelessness at taxpayers' expense, that's worth more than all those lives. Try to tell me that that's not what that means. It damn well does. But it's not true, and they need to get the F out right away. They need to be bulldozed. If they're not going to do it on their own, they need to be marshaled.
Well, what about the housewarming kits?
Well,
The 58 housewarming kits that they helped, put together with UCLA and Village for Vets, man.
Senate, you're buzzing. Your battery might be bad.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Are you there?
Yeah, I just muted though.
Okay. Guys, I'm gonna have to take my dog out. One of the I guess part of my mission statement here is with the advocacy, trying to help people as well as myself. There's people that have lost their minds and they're just not able to advocate for themselves anymore. And if I can be the voice for the voiceless, it's worth it. And I want to speak up for someone that can't speak up for themselves. And I'm going to show you the picture. This is Sir Tank Sherman of the Light Fur, my faithful service dog. You see these big black spots, the skin infections that he's suffering with? I hope that you could see him. It's because of the toxins in this place. And it makes him very sick. He's on a lot of medication. And as soon as he's out of here, it clears up. So he's got some serious problems and he can't do anything but just cry. And I don't sleep much anymore because I'm up every 3 hours giving him medication and rubbing ointment on those sore spots. And it's just the unmitigated cruelty in this place. It absolutely shocks me. I even confronted Derek today and said, "What is wrong with you? Why do you hate yourself so much? Why do you hate us so much? Why are you treating me this way? Why didn't you offer when I was spinning in circles in my little wheelchair with a urinal in one hand, trying to pump it with the other and not spill it on my infected foot? For God's sake, why didn't you help me? Instead, you make fun of me and say you're going to write me up." And he said I was being insubordinate and disrespectful. And you're talking about, there's a threat that I will be evicted because I dared to speak back to him. But so I'm afraid. I've got to go walk my dog. He's been very patient. And to all the people that are listening, to my fellow veterans, we held the line. Even to the guys that I may not get along with, I trusted you with my back, and I still do. Semper Fi, you're not alone. And that's about all I can do tonight, guys. I'm going to have to sign off. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
George. I don't know if my mic is choppy, but thank you. And I'm here where anything we can do. Obviously, it's limited, but your courage and brave to talk about this and share this, and we're here for you as much as we can be, man.
Thanks so much, man. God bless you guys and have a good night.
Thanks, George. Talk to
Good
you
night,
tomorrow.
George. All right, well, I'm gonna hop off. Ryan, did you want to mention anything else? Let's see
No,
here.
I think just leaving it at that is where it's at for
Yeah.
now.
Well, until next time, we'll do another. There is 2 or 3 other streams, for sure 2, between Ryan and I, and he really breaks down and shares quite a bit about how this fraud continues, remains, and puts someone like George in the situation he's in. So check those out, and thank you for watching.